Hi, it's IPC Apex Expo 2023, the final day, the final half day.
Yes.
I'm joined by Tom from Kyzen. Thanks for coming over.
Great to see you.
Good to see you again. Where was it last?
Probably
Minneapolis?
Minneapolis, maybe. Yeah.
Minneapolis. We were talking then about, shows slowly getting back on their feet, and now it feels like we're just back. Business is back.
Well, Tuesday morning was a joy, right? Show started a bit late because of the keynotes and the ribbon cutting, kind of normal first day stuff. But my goodness, the floor filled up pretty quickly. The lobby was pretty full.
Yep.
It was certainly different from everything that's been on the backside of COVID so far.
Yeah, definitely. And I think all of the the sessions and seminars have all been really well attended.
Right, the sessions have been well attended. From what I heard, I participated in some. The standard committee meetings over the weekend were also well attended from what I've heard. So I think this is a clear signal that the game is back on.
Yeah. And interestingly, for a lot of people through the last couple of years, business didn't go away, did it? There's still a lot of people developing and changing the way they worked, and you get the impression now that everyone's come out the gates running. It's
interesting.
Busy.
For many years, there's let's face it, if we go back decades before any of us were here, everything was eyeball to eyeball. Everything was a handshake, right? Technology has come into the games, and particularly the last 10 or 20 years, in a very aggressive way. And there's always been this: how close is the science fiction world going to come? How close are we, the reality, going to catch up to the science fiction world? I think we've sort of proved during COVID that there is a balance. That the teams and the Zoom meetings are wonderful. They have their place, but not 100%. And so there is still that water cooler. There is still that industry bazaar, if you will, the marketplace where ideas are exchanged, sometimes accidentally.
Yes.
One of the things that I've noticed over the years, and when I was at university, when you needed information, you went to the library and you made your way through the stacks. And of course, it was certainly true for me and many others that you learn more from what you weren't looking for than what you learned from what you were looking for. Well, Google's better than we were. Yeah. Google's targeting is quite good. Yeah. So we get less of that in the vicinity, but not exactly sort of information flow. And I think we get that at gatherings, whether it's at a technical committee where people are all focused on one dimension, but yet many people participate that do lots of different things across the spectrum and have key elements that are critical to them that, maybe not so much for me.
Yes.
And we learn from those things. And I think that collective learning is of great value to the industry.
Yeah, definitely.
And it, whether it's the committee meetings or the technical programs or just the technical discussions, let's not forget, we think of these as sales events, but no one's here, having an auction, bid a note for an extra pound or dollar or whatever. What are we doing? We're solving technical problems. We're talking about technical capabilities that do they align with the technical needs of a manufacturer to accomplish their goal.
Yep.
Right, it's a complete technical dialogue focused on the many steps in the process to turn raw materials into some gizmo for some person, perhaps saving their life.
Do you think that people have become more collaborative since COVID? That it kind of proved that because that was a little bit of adversity and we found new ways to communicate, and because we didn't have those face-to-face meetings, we had to do things remotely, so it took more of a two-way conversation going on with customers, whatever, and they in some sense had a direct line to you, didn't they?
Whereas, well, I guess that's an interesting question. I mean, our world, we're the cleaning people, right? So our world is very collaborative because we are a response variable. someone has a process that requires cleaning. They invent the process most often without thinking of the needs of cleaning. You know, occasionally, but not terribly often. So the nature of our world is one of intense collaboration between, gee, I've got this contaminant that I've got to remove, I've got this substrate that I have to not harm, and I've got a machine that it has to function in a socio and regulatory environment that it's got to be safe and legal and all these kinds of things. Oh, and by the way, it's got to clean.
Yeah.
and so, from our perspective, I'm not sure that we would necessarily say it's become more collaborative.
No,
but I think many folks are in different circumstances where that degree of collaboration is totally different, and perhaps for them, yes. Because it certainly required, people going the extra mile. But I just hope it translates into folks walking down the hall.
Yeah.
And having those dialogues. We certainly found in our organization, and we're a bit of a hybrid, right? We've got people that are always out in the field.
Yeah.
We've got people that are often out in the field, and we've got folks that do it all under the roof. Yeah. And we found that the under the roof folks. Obviously, the manufacturing people had to be there because you can't manufacture from home. Yeah. But the support staff is accounting, marketing, that kind of stuff. They really missed the under the roof part. That their functions really required that collaboration. Yeah. It was more efficient and effective with collaboration, but it wasn't digital collaboration. That made it harder. So I think it's going to be a mixed bag as organizations all look to themselves and say, what's the nature of us? I believe every enterprise, has an id, has their own personality. Some of us have a pretty good idea what it is, and some of us are too busy trying to survive to know.
Yes, true.
Okay. And some places are so big that it's hard to figure out which one, right? Because there's such large enterprises that maybe they don't have one personality.
Yeah.
But I think those are important things, and the team coalescing in those personalities and those approaches is really important. And we are the globalist of industries. We have more places in function operations in more places doing more things than I think any other industry except maybe farming. Yeah. But most farmers are independent, right? The farmer in Thailand isn't owned by some guy in Brussels. Yeah. Whereas the electronics EMS guy, it could be. Yeah. So I really think that's this collaboration thing is. I think there's benefits that are going to come from it, but I think it will depend on the organization and where you were before that. But all pendulums swing, right? Of course, with COVID, the pendulum swung all the way in one direction, where stay home, get out of the way, stop killing your neighbor, this kind of stuff, and we all responded to that. Yeah. But that was that pendulum was pretty far out there, right? So what has it done? It's come back the other way. Where is the middle ground? Will the middle ground be where it was before? Probably not. But we'll. I think at this point things are kind of swinging back.
That's it,
and they always overshoot, right? So we'll kind of see what that's going to be an evolution and a transition, I think.
And there's always. In Minneapolis, we're talking because the headlines are about inflation and a possible recession. Well, there's been inflation, but the threat of recession hasn't been as bad as it was. But everyone I was talking to said, well, if you've been in business for any length of time, you've weathered these storms, and it's kind of just these things you have to cope with. But it's surprising how buoyant everything seems at the moment.
Well, that's one of the big ironies of this gathering, right? If you were to read the newspapers or the digital newspapers for the last month or two, the doom and gloom is the headline. All right, the details have varied, but doom and gloom is the deal. The world is coming to an end. The recession is coming, and it's going to be horrible. And inflation's well. Now we come to the show. Everybody seems very optimistic.
Yes.
People are excited about the future. There's some really tectonic shifts going on with sort of rebalancing of supply chains and making decisions about whether is the the dynamic of container shipping worth the now uncertainty of whether it will arrive on time, nearly on time, or who knows when. Different decisions are being made than were being made a few years ago, and that's very exciting. That creates opportunities, and it's hard to not be positive about our industry and our prospects after spending 3 days here at Apex.
True. Yeah. No, it has been a fantastic one of the best for some time, actually, isn't it?
Without doubt. Yep.
Yeah.
It's been something.
Well, thanks for talking to us, Tom. Pleasure as ever, and we'll see you next at.
Probably Munich or Nuremberg or someplace like that.
One of those, yeah. Good.
All righty, take care. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.